Hello and welcome to Wild Owl TV. This video is a compilation video. Over the last 6 months or so I've been saving all sorts of clips that I've taken from around the garden day and night, and I haven't really had a chance to put them into some of the previous videos I've posted, so I thought I'd gather them all up together ready for, well, all the new action, so it kind of clears the decks a little bit and will bring you right up to date with what's been happening. So I've got some great clips of badgers, wood mice, cats, wild birds. There's a little bit of sad footage in there, unfortunately, and some inspiring footage, and it really is a wonderful compilation of the diversity of species that visit the Wild Owl Garden. So I hope you enjoy it. Thanks for tuning in, and of course if you'd like to share the page, please feel free, share the video. I'm on a YouTube channel, Wild Owl TV, also on Twitter and obviously on Facebook, and hope that you'll spread the word, and we'll continue to keep you up to date with happenings around the Wild Owl Garden and try to inspire you to do some of these initiatives to help British wildlife yourself. Thanks for watching, see you soon. Long-tailed tits are regular visitors to the garden, and they're always fun to watch. But one of my favourite birds that pops in from time to time has to be the blackcap. This female is a regular visitor to the feeding station, feasting on fat balls or sometimes sunflower hearts. This winter we've also had a pair of siskins regularly coming in to feed. Notice this one's got a ring on its leg. This little finch has a real liking for the sunflower hearts. The male is a colourful bright yellow-green with black markings. I tell you, it's almost like having a canary on the feeders. They're beautiful. But not everybody in the garden appreciates their presence. This house sparrow is using its larger size and strength to bully the smaller visitor off the feeder. Oi, that's no way to treat a guest, mate. Now, at the end of last year I invested in a small Panasonic HD minicam. I've actually been very disappointed with it and regret not buying a GoPro. But when it has worked properly, it's given me some useful close-up footage from the feeders. The one thing about putting feed out in the garden is that nothing goes to waste, as you can see here. So we're into early spring now, and lots of garden birds are now pair bonding and stating claim to nest sites ready for nest building and egg laying. There are lots of boxes for my blue tits to choose from, but they still keep me on my toes. This great tit is showing a lot of interest in the box by the pond, but it suspects that it's already been claimed. And in case there's any doubt, the blue tit flies in with a reminder. I've also installed cameras in a couple of the nest boxes. So now I'm just waiting in the hope that at least one of them gets used. And if one does get used, we should be able to see all the action from inside the box. So far things are looking very hopeful. Now, I mentioned in my introduction there was a sad event that happened in the garden. The birds have all sorts of places to wash themselves, and even when the waterfall pump failed, I provided a large bathing bowl for them to use. But one morning I was concerned to see a blackbird washing itself in the pond. It managed to do this by balancing on a bulrush stalk, but this was over quite deep water. And a few days later my worst fears were realised when I found the drowned body of a similar bird in the water. I can only assume it was the same bird. And it just goes to show, despite their obvious value, ponds are also death traps to all sorts of wildlife if they fall in and can't get back out again. It's such a shame. The waterfall is a much safer place to bathe, and that's why I do try hard to make sure that there's no problems with the pump supply, and the birds use it regularly. It's also a very good place to search for food. Oh, cheers, mate. Now, a couple of years ago, I had a very confiding fox that I'd feed with some of the owl's food each night. I think it was a vixen, and she had a very gentle demeanour and would sometimes sit like a dog waiting for her turn to be fed. We used to call her Foxy. I remember hearing foxes fighting one night, and after that we never saw her again. This made me wonder if she'd been driven away from her territory. And then a few months later we started to see another fox in the garden, but this time during the day, and this animal was so obviously very unwell due to mange. Mange is a mite infestation that attacks the animal's skin, and if untreated can eventually lead to death. It's so sad to see such a beautiful animal suffering, and although I lace food with a medication for mange, sadly I think these foxes didn't make it. I'll never know if either of these were Foxy, but since then foxes rarely visit the garden. But to be honest, I don't think too much about that because I'm so preoccupied with our next visitor. Yeah, that's a camera, mate. Badgers are creatures of habit, and they always notice when something new appears on their routes. Oh, we've got another one now. It's alright mate, your brothers just checked me out. Really interesting how the first night the camera went in they all noticed it, but after that they didn't bother looking at it. So the feeding bowls are currently down by the shed. At the moment they get cleaned out most nights by the badgers. I keep them covered for two reasons. One, so I can hear the clang of the lid when they're there, and two, so that if they don't come in, I can tell without having to look at the CCTV. I have to say it's like watching paint dry when you watch badgers feeding, so let's just speed things up a little. And there's a family of wood mice living in the shed, and they often watch eagerly to see if the badger is going to miss a peanut. But they rarely do. Yeah, that was a mouse. Now this particular night I had the minicam set up close to the bowls, and this was the badger's reaction to my scent. It just really shows you how wary these animals are of humans. However, the lure of more peanuts soon brought him back, albeit with a little more caution. Well, if you arrive late for dinner, you're going to be finding that your cousin has scoffed a lot, mate. But if you're determined, you could always try breaking into the food box, as this badger demonstrates. And this is what I woke up to the next morning. Now I forgot to mention in the intro that I took a trip to Slimbridge recently, and I promised my mate Rich that I'd put some of the video up. So this is a great crested newt, our largest newt, highly protected, and sadly another species of British wildlife that's under threat. As I say, they're so much larger than the common or smooth newt that I have in my pond. They're fascinating amphibians. If you ever come across these great crested newts, make sure you tell your local council if you find any, because they're highly protected and councils will really need to know about them, and they can sometimes halt developments. Another creature we saw at Slimbridge was their family of North American otters. Very cute. This is mother with some boisterous cubs. And finally, harvest mice. I used to keep these small mammals, and it's another creature that is sadly declined in the British countryside due to intensive farming. So there you go, Rich, I hope you're happy now. Let's get back to the wild owl garden. And earlier this year I drained the pond and installed a new filter to clear the water for underwater filming in the spring. So far so good, it's clearing nicely. The frogs started appearing with their mates early in March, and since then have been spawning. And the pond is now teeming with smooth newts, who will also start spawning soon. They move so much quicker in water than they do on land. Back on dry land, and I've also prepared the bumblebee viewing box for the new season. This is the remains of last year's nest. A common parasite of bees' nests is the wax moth, and my bumblebee box is full of wax moth larvae by the end of the summer. These have all been removed now, but if the box is used again, I've no doubt eventually they will return. I'm seeing wood mice regularly on the corner cam, down by the wildlife area, and you can see here how one makes use of a pipe for cover. It's a classic example of how refuges can help keep animals safe against predators. So in your wild areas, it's always a good idea to put out flower pots and tubing and log piles, things like that, where these small mammals can dash for cover if there's a threat. Just like this, and once again it gives the mouse a useful bolt hole. And here comes the reason. Sensible mouse. Also in the wildlife area is a bumblebee house that's been used by wood mice for a few years now. A recent storm damaged the tree it was fixed to, so I thought I'd move it before the neighbour got to work with his saw. Even though the box was put up in the hedge, it was found by the mice and they moved in. Wood mice are great climbers, and it's proved to be a really good site for a nest. And being off the ground affords a little bit more protection from predators. Opening the lid, you can see what a great family home they've made. I can only imagine how many young mice will be born in here, but there's none in there today. So here's the new spot for it on the wood pile, where they can quickly once again dive into cover when they emerge from the box. 10 feet away there's another bumblebee house that is occupied by wood mice. Here's Mum, and if you look carefully you'll see she's suckling a newborn mouse. No wonder there are so many mice in this garden with all this 5-star accommodation. By the back door, I regularly leave a funnel out on the decking with peanuts in it for the badgers, but as you can see the mice have found it too. When I'm asleep at night with the window open, I can often hear that funnel rolling around on top of the box. These mice are from the shed nest, and since filming this I've moved the feeder away from the back door, because it's just a matter of time before one decides to explore the house, and we don't want that, do we? Now you know how much I love cats. Yeah, right. Anyway, neither do the mice. And as you can see, the neighbour's pet continues to visit uninvited. This animal only has one purpose: to hunt and kill anything and everything it can, including squirrels. Especially very stupid squirrels. In fact, unbelievably stupid squirrels. Still, it seems to have got away this time. So my anti-cat measures include a fabulous PIR activated water sprayer. Although I think it sprayed me more than the cat. A pair of rubber snakes that flew in all the way from China on the eBay plane, and as I hinted on my intro, it doesn't work. In fact, the snakes scared me more than the cats. And my latest acquisition, a PIR activated sonic animal deterrent that emits a high frequency noise to scare the cat away. So does this device work? Well, let's see. It's set up just by the shed. The cat heads towards the mice and bingo, look at that reaction, it works. And as it runs on batteries, it can be moved around the garden so the cat never knows when it's going to zap it next. Good riddance to you. But there is a slight drawback. Badgers can hear it too. This badger checks the funnel for peanuts, and look at its reaction as it triggers the device. There's no question it can hear the squeal of the sonic device. And it's triggered again. It's obviously uncomfortable to the badger's ears. This badger is really freaked out by this, especially as this has never occurred by the feeding bowls. But you know, if there was ever any proof how much badgers love peanuts, well, this is it. Even a scare like that isn't going to put them off their favourite food. But perhaps that was just one zap too many. Another badger visits a while later, and this one really doesn't like it. So I'm going to have to keep it away from the badgers, but it looks like it could be a useful tool to scare the cat away. Does anybody believe in ghosts, by the way? Thanks for watching.